All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast. 162 games for all 30 Major League Baseball teams are officially in the books. 18 teams are going to be watching the postseason proceedings from home while there are still 12 teams alive that have an opportunity to say that they're World Series champions for here in 2023. But first things first, we've got to get through the wild card round. And we saw it last year as this was the first year where MLB went to a 12-team postseason. Of course, once you take out the 2020 COVID year from that equation, but nonetheless, with that excitement, we saw the Philadelphia Phillies, the sixth seed out of the National League, make it all the way to the Fall Classic. And with that said, there were two wild card teams duking it out in the NLCS because you had the five seed San Diego Padres who made a run as well. And both the Phillies and Padres eliminated two teams that had first round buys last year in the Atlanta Braves and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Will we be in store for some of that excitement again come the divisional round? We've got to wait and see. But nonetheless, I think we've got four good series on the mend, if you will, for the wild card round. Now you got the six-seeded Toronto Blue Jays out of the American League East taking on the champs of the American League Central in the Minnesota Twins. And of course, the Twins did not play in the best division in baseball. Honestly, they were the only team that finished with a winning record in the Central. And honestly, this division was the Twins to lose once the Cleveland Guardians had that fire sale at the trade deadline. Not to mention, you had two clubs in the Central this year, both the Royals and White Sox, who lost more than 100 games. On the flip side, for the Jays, they played in arguably the toughest division in baseball, the American League East, as four of the five combatants from that division finished with a winning record this year, and three of them are here in the postseason. Now, for these Jays, is this going to be the year that they break through? And I say that because this is their third trip to the postseason in the last 4 years, but they've never gotten past the divisional round. You look at this team, you got Vlad Jr. What are we going to get with him from him with that bad knee? You got George Springer, a guy who's been there and done that with that World Series experience from the Astros. And the same thing can be said for a veteran like Brandon Belt. All of those World Series championships with the Toronto Blue Jays, pardon me, not the Toronto Blue Jays, the San Francisco Giants. He's playing for the Blue Jays right now. But nonetheless, can he transfer that experience to this team? Bo Bichette has been solid all season long for Toronto, and they're going to need some more of that as they look to advance. Chris Bassett, he didn't have a good postseason outing last year with the Mets, but he's been a solid guy for the Jays all season long. Hit the 200 inning mark this year for the first time in his big league career. And he's going to need to be on point to get past this Twins lineup in this series. I also look at Kevin Gausman and then Jordan Romano in that Jays bullpen. He could be a factor as well. Now, on the flip side for Minnesota and their manager, Rocco Baldelli, this is their first trip to the postseason since 2020. But the Twins are actually looking to win a postseason series for the first time since 2002 when they got to the American League Championship Series. Speaking of postseason experience, you got a guy like Carlos Correa. He helped the Astros win a World Series along with George Springer. Now he's looking to help Minnesota make a run in this postseason. And I think Max Kepler is another guy to watch out for in this Twins lineup. Sonny Gray, what are we going to get from him on the mound? At times, it could be feast or famine with Sonny Gray. And of course, in this situation, the Twins need him to be on point when he takes that bump in this series. But nonetheless, I think the Jays are the better team. And because of that, I'm going to give Toronto the edge in this series to advance in 3 games. Now, the other American League series, rather, this is a doozy because you've got the Texas Rangers set to get it on with the Tampa Bay Rays. And Texas and Tampa Bay, they do have a postseason history over the last 10 years. They've met multiple times in the playoffs. And you look at both of these teams. Tampa Bay, they won 99 games this year, had one of the better records in baseball, but they could not overcome the Baltimore Orioles in the East. The Texas Rangers, they were battling tooth and nail with both Seattle and Houston down the stretch to win the American League West. They had the AL West title in their grasp heading into the final weekend of the season rather, and they couldn't get it done. And because of that, instead of having a first round bye, they got to do something here in the wild card round. And for me, the biggest question for this Texas team is what Rangers team are we going to see? Because at times Texas has played like the best team in baseball, and at times they've played like a team that just cannot get out of their own way. Now, you got a veteran manager in Bruce Bochy. He has seen his fair share of baseball wars, and he's going to have this team ready to go in game number one. Plenty of firepower in this Rangers lineup when you think about the likes of Adolis Garcia, Corey Seager, and Marcus Simeon. But the Rangers pitching, so many injuries to that rotation. Who is going to step up for Texas in this series? For Tampa Bay, it's one of those where it's just the next guy up mentality with the likes of Randy Arozarena, Isaac Paredes, and Yandy Diaz in that lineup. And then you look at this pitching, the Rays just keep coming at you with arms, whether it's in their rotation or coming out of their bullpen. Tyler Glasnow, Zach Eflin, and then, of course, that bullpen has always been on point. I look at a tale of 2 years because last year at this time, the Rays got into the postseason, but they were not playing their best baseball. And because of that, they were bounced in the wild card round by Cleveland. This time around, I think Texas is playing better baseball. And the fact that they knew it at the very worst they were going to be the 4th seed from like a couple of weeks ago, but they were battling to the very end with Baltimore to win that American League East, and because of that, they had to keep their foot on the throttle. The Rangers were battling as well, but I think they got caught up in the wash a little bit. And when it's all said and done, I think that's going to affect this series. And I'm going to take the Rays to advance over the Rangers in 3 games. Now, moving on to the National League side, you got the 6th seeded Arizona Diamondbacks taking on the 3rd seed, the Milwaukee Brewers, the champions of the National League Central. Now, for the Diamondbacks, they enter the postseason for the first time since 2017, but they also enter on a 4-game losing streak. So, how would Torey Lavello's team respond now here in the postseason? Plenty of talent in this Arizona lineup with the likes of Christian Walker, Ketel Marte, and Corbin Carroll, but their pitching is going to be under the microscope with Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly. Now, how dangerous will the Brewers be in the postseason? Of course, no Brandon Woodruff, at least for this series. So it's going to be on Corbin Burns and this Milwaukee bullpen. You got Christian Yelich, you got William Contreras, you got Carlos Santana. For me, Christian Yelich, like I talked about it during the year, he's finally healthy again. And of course, he had that devastating knee injury a couple of years ago, and he's back. And I think picking up a guy like Carlos Santana at the trade deadline from Pittsburgh really helped this lineup here in Milwaukee. And because of that, I'm going to take the Brewers to advance past the Diamondbacks in 2 games. And then finally, an NL East battle in Philadelphia, as you got the 5 seed Miami Marlins taking on the defending National League champions in the Philadelphia Phillies. And what a turnaround it's been for the Marlins as they lost 93 games last year, but they're postseason bound this year under first-year skipper Skip Schumacher. Luis Arias, he flirted with hitting 400 earlier this season before he tapered off. And then, of course, you got the power of Jorge Soler in this lineup. No Sandy Alcantara for the Marlins coming down the stretch. He's done for the season for the most part. And I think that's really going to hinder Miami's chances of advancing. On the flip side, the Phillies are definitely looking to make another World Series run, and they're loaded in this team. Bryce Harper, he's coming back from that arm surgery. He's looking good. Doesn't have the pop in his bat, but you know what? He's still hitting for average. Trey Turner, the second half, Trey Turner was much better than first half Trey Turner. And I think if he can build off of that into the postseason for Philadelphia. That's just going to give this team more depth. You look at the pop in this lineup with the likes of Nick Castellanos, Alec Baum, and of course, JT Realmuto. And then, of course, even though he doesn't hit for average, Kyle Schwarber still nearly hit 50 home runs this season. The pitching advantage definitely goes to the Phillies with Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. And then Taijuan Walker. He can be up and down at times as well, but he can give the Phillies a solid outing if need be. The Phillies have the experience. The Phillies have the better team. And because of that, I'm going to take the Fighting Phils to advance to the LDS to take on the Braves. And I think they get past Miami in 2 games. So, folks, that is my outlook for the wild card round in the Major League Baseball playoffs, which is set to begin tomorrow. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Now, I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now, you can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I'm signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.